Hey, listener, we've made some changes to our Patreon campaign, and we're really excited about them. Go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv to see what the new tiers are and maybe help us out a little bit. Once again, that is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thanks.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
In his time, Master Logarius led his executioners into Cainhurst Castle to cleanse it of the vile bloods. But all did not go well, and Master Logarius became a blessed anchor, guarding us from evil. Tragic, tragic times. That Master Logarius should be abandoned in the accursed domain of the vile bloods. I must free him, so that he may be properly honored in martyrdom.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
My name is Cory Banks.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a beastly favorite.
Yes, and this week we are continuing our discussion of Bloodborne after a little Dark Souls 2 detour by talking about the Forsaken Castle Cainhurst. And as you heard, we are joined by Cory Banks from the Gamers with Jobs podcast. Thank you for joining us, Cory.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Super excited.
So I'm very excited super excited to have you. Can you tell people who are listening just basically what you do, and then also kind of go into your history with Souls and how you got into that?
What I do is sometimes I talk into a microphone with my friends at the Gamers with Jobs conference call and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. We call that podcasting. Let's see. Gamers with Jobs is a internet community founded like 13-14 years ago for quote unquote mature video game players, and not in like the creepy porn way, but like in like people who actually have money to spend, and really the problem is they don't have enough time to play games. Best community in the world, I think. Please go there, gamerswithjobs.com, and play lots of games with us. And we do a podcast every Wednesday where we talk about stuff. My history with the Souls series is kind of interesting in that we started talking about Demon Souls and Dark Souls on the show when our the founder of Gamers with Jobs, Sean Andrich, was getting into them. And the first time I tried playing Dark Souls, I absolutely hated it. Did not see the appeal. And it took when the game came out on PC and me kind of really easing into it and having someone kind of show me a little bit of the ropes before I got hooked. So I've played Demon Souls. I've played Dark Souls. I've played Dark Souls 2. When I was managing editor at PC Gamer, I did a whole bunch of Dark Souls 2 coverage, wrote the review, read a whole bunch of reviews on the DLC. I was the guy they would make fun of because they were playing like Arma and like big crazy PC games. I was like, but guys, you could plug a controller into your personal computer and play Dark Souls. And then Bloodborne, which came out this year, and I bought a PS4 for and kind of introduced some people to. And I think it's an interesting spin on that Souls series, and it definitely feels very Souls. Definitely feels like that same sort of game, but it's both easier and harder in a lot of ways. And so I've kind of been preaching the gospel ever since and getting people into it. And I know I have friends who have purchased PS4s just to play this game, and now that they're done with it, like they don't know what to do because they want to go back to PCs. So yeah, I mean it's a game. I said this a few times, but like it is a game that has taught me the real life skill of patience. Something that I don't have a ton of, but it took playing Dark Souls and really taking my time and being okay with dying and letting go and understanding that those souls are just going to be gone now for me to really start thinking about patience as an actual virtue. So
can you name a specific moment where you lost that attachment?
Dark Souls 1, Undead Parish. It's after the first boss.
So the parish.
After the Tartarus demon, you're in the parish, and I just specifically remember like I had all those souls from the first boss, and I was so proud of myself. and then got wiped out by the dragon, by the wyvern that's sitting on the bridge. And I just thought, that's all gone, because I'm not going to be able to get those souls again. And like, I even remember trying to inch my way over there and like having like a 30-minute session of just trying to get to where my corpse had been, and before I just gave up and was like, I don't need those. It's okay to let go. And there's something very Zen-like about that, which is strange in a game that's supposed to depress the hell out of you. But it's, I have that strange connection to the games since then.
Yeah, that's fairly. I think that's common. I think a lot of people get that from these games. Like, an acceptance of death is definitely a big kind of overarching theme of the series.
Like losing as progress, right?
Yeah.
Like, there aren't a lot of games. I guess there are more now, but there aren't a lot of games where it is okay to sacrifice a run simply so you can explore an area or get an item. Like when you run into there's a couple of areas, like when you take the back end out to
Blighttown,
like Blighttown, and you get the dragon from the undead, or you get the items from the undead dragon, and he kills you, and you know you're going to die, but you get those items anyway. There's just a lot of great design lessons that can be picked up from that, and it's good to see those design lessons being carried over to other games now. But it's also just an interesting way of thinking about how to play through a game. I don't know. This all sounds like I'm so far up my own ass when talking about it, though. Honestly,
we do that. Like that. We are often up our own asses on the show. That is there's some real wankery that goes on.
People don't know there's a bonfire up there. It's okay.
Yeah. You only have to get part way through at a time.
The doctor says I should be concerned, but I'm like, fuck you.
I don't have to be concerned until I'm 40.
There you go.
Then it's your finger.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true of both of us as well. So Cole, what did we do last time here?
Well, previously, it was a little while ago, but we fought our way through the Forbidden Woods and found the abandoned college at Bergenworth before plunging into the lake and killing Rom, the vacuous spider, a godlike being who was holding back the pale blood moon. Now, before venturing into the transformed city of Yharnam, it is time to accept a cryptic invitation to Castle Cainhurst. And then I'll put in some spooky haunted house sounds there.
And is this your edit or my edit?
It's my edit.
Okay. I thought you were volunteering me to whip out my like Dr. Spookula's Good Time horror CD.
You're always so eager other times.
Yeah, I know.
I almost hope the edit doesn't happen now and you guys just discuss the edit. Now I just wanted to be like,
that happens also a lot.
Awesome.
So people who are listening are probably thinking like, oh, a lot of stuff happened with the Pale Blood Moon. We're going to cover a lot of that next episode because Cainhurst is a pretty self-contained area, and we want to kind of keep it that way. So there are a lot of changes that happen in the Blood Moon, but we're going to go over that next time.
Yeah.
When we actually end up back in Yharnam. This is way back when we did the Forbidden Woods, and we got the summons from the imposter Yosefka's clinic. Formerly Yosefka's clinic, which I really want to like. It just made me think of like imposter Arby's, formerly Arby's, or something like that. That's still beef.
Yeah, why am I sending all these people to the Arby's? They never seem to come back out.
You go to the Arby's and you knock on the door, like they don't let you in. Then it's like, how are you?
They just slide little slices of roast beef out under the door.
Like, guys, I'm just here for the curly fries. Let me in. What's going on?
They feed the curly fries through the keyhole.
Yeah.
Right? Real talk, I would do that. They don't have Arby's here where I live now, and I would do that if someone had some curly fries. I wouldn't ask if they're a celestial being in disguise or anything. I'd just be like, give me those fries.
Yeah. Yeah, sweet sedative. So Cainhurst is interesting because this is definitely an optional area that has its own kind of vibe to it. And it's related to the main story, but tangentially. So what Cainhurst is the real quick. Well, no, you have a getting there thing because I wanted to talk about like how the invitations kind of speculation. Yeah. But so what Cainhurst is this. I get the impression an older kingdom than Yharnam due to architecture, and the item descriptions say that they have a nostalgic and bombastic style. which I like. And at some point, a Bergenworth scholar defected to Cainhurst and took the secret of blood healing with them, which started this kind of arms race, or at least animosity, between the two groups.
So this decadent nobility over at Cainhurst, they, bought into this blood economy like we found in Yardham and Old Yardham and what have you. And they started using kind of more tainted versions of the blood, according to some of the item descriptions and also some of the dialogue, which turned them into different kind of beasts than those that were found elsewhere. I'm kind of led to believe.
Yeah, there's kind of two major theories as to what's going on with Cainhurst. One of them is that we talked about the Witch of Hemwick doing kind of a corrupted or backwards version of what the church was doing. That's one. And then the other theory that you'll find online is that they are descendants of the Thumerians.
Yeah, like this is a branch of the Thumerians that kind of broke up from underground.
Yeah,
from under the labyrinth and became kind of this splinter sect, which people point to the designs of some of the enemies here to kind of justify that.
Yeah, I don't have a conclusive answer for that. I don't have one thing.
It feels like a stretch to me.
Yeah,
honestly, I mean, I don't want to be super political about this, but like it just seems like why would you leave underground and then go above ground?
Yeah, I kind of
buy the first theory more.
I can see the second one mostly just because they talk about I can't remember which item it is, but there's some item that talks about them being familiar with it from long ago.
Yeah.
In some version that predated, I think that's the term, like the Beast Plague.
Yeah.
But like the enemy, looking the same. Like if your evidence is that something is tall and gaunt, and it's in this game, like there's a lot of tall, gaunt, things going on in this game,
and also the statues that are around there don't have the same proportions that the Thumerians seem to have.
Yeah.
Like kind of the statues of the nobility, they don't kind of look like the Scream a little bit. Although there is kind of a weird connection between like the Ring of Betrothal and Annalise, which we'll talk about later.
It is. I don't know if it's a connection between the ring or just the fact that she's like the lady who's still around at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's a weird thing, but that ring is such an odd I was thinking about it today. I really don't want one of those weird dead ends to lead into the DLC. If they make you have to get the Ring of Betrothal to go into the DLC,
Jesus.
Like, fuck you. Like, I do not want it to be related to deep diving in chalices.
Nope.
Because nobody will get to it. So the Cainhurst, so there are also these knights of Cainhurst, who were these servants who disposed the beast before they could kind of interrupt the luxury of the kingdom. And then there are the Vile Bloods, who served the nobility and were the nobility, hunting down the blood dregs of hunters for the Queen Annalise, who sought immortality, which she ultimately achieved, and to kind of become a vessel and have an heir, the blood child, which is more or less kind of a great one. The dregs, it should be noted, if you pick up blood dregs, they look like cum. Like they look like little tiny semens.
Not intentional. We did not plan this years in advance.
The makers of this game were very, very well adjusted.
Yeah.
They had no problems whatsoever.
It is, yeah, because I'm not the most mature person, and I just imagine having the discussion about this. It's like, oh, this vampire is going to send you out to collect cum, and then just be like, not, and just take that 100% seriously, and just be like, oh yeah, great, that's pretty cool. Vampires are collecting cum. I love it.
I mean, I don't know. I met some vampires last weekend, and they didn't say cum necessarily.
Yeah.
They said spunk, but it's still
the pallid gift.
Yes, yeah. the ivory ichor. Yes.
Yeah.
I said, "Why are you being so mysterious? Can I turn the lights on?"
Yeah.
But I mean, that's so. I don't want to jump ahead here, but like the Vile Bloods as these vampires, like there's no real explanation for how they became vampires, is there?
I mean, aside from the fact that everybody's drinking blood at all times, and they're just kind of pursuing it in the way that makes it seem like the most like the Eastern European vampires were kind of used to from media.
But like, okay, but like you said, everybody's drinking blood in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's getting their blood on. So how specifically did the Vile Bloods become vampires, and how did Annalise become, immortal?
I have no idea.
I might be raising questions for which we will have answers later on. Stop me.
There's no answer to how that I can find as to why Annalise is immortal. even if she is like an ancient Thumerian, like you can go down and just straight up kill Thumerians.
Yeah.
Right.
She is, she's the unkillable character in the game, really. So I don't know why she's immortal. It's weird.
Yeah.
And
that throws a little bit of a wrench into the this is Thumeria thing for me.
Yeah,
as well.
totally. Yeah.
So even though these Vile Bloods and Cainhurst and everything kind of had the same goals and a little bit of the same MO of the Healing Church, the Choir, the School of Mensis, etc., they were doing it wrong according to the mainline sect of Yharnam. So these executioners were sent out by the Healing Church, led by Martyr Logarius, to kind of cleanse the Vile Bloods from Cainhurst. But Annalise is still alive in this blighted castle, and nobody knows what became of Logarius. We're going to find out later on in the episode, but that's kind of the stasis that we arrive at.
And some of the chronology is weird here, too, because the executioners definitely predate the Healing Church. Even though they may have existed at the same time. There's like some note where it says the Healing Church's outfits are based on the executioners' outfits. So the executioners, where they fit in other than just their relationship to Cainhurst, I don't really know. And all of that lends this to being a really kind of self-contained area. Like there are threads, but it feels the most like a Dark Souls 2 DLC.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I had vibes when I was playing through Cainhurst that it was definitely a part of another game that had been grafted onto this. And I don't say that as a complaint, because it is seriously one of the best areas in a Souls game. But the feel is just different enough that it's almost like you're getting a preview of what maybe like a Demon Souls 2 could have been, yeah,
totally. This feels like a Demon Souls level, or like similar to the Painted World, which also felt like a Demon Souls level, and at times reminds me of Castlevania, down to there being flea men, like there being little fencing flea men that feel like a direct Castlevania reference.
You fight a skeleton with a scythe.
Yeah, the skeleton pulls up on a cycle.
I mean, that's kind of an interesting theory, and I guess I hadn't really thought of Painted World as like that too. But like it feels different enough that maybe it had some direction from a slightly different team. It could have been used for something else.
Yeah,
and Cainhurst has the same feel. Not to take away from it or to take away from the main Bloodborne game, because I do also feel like it meshes pretty well thanks to a lot of the myth and world building that they put into it, but it feels like a slightly different adventure, and that's cool. It almost felt like a break from the rest of the main game when I was playing through it, and I enjoyed that a lot, although I hate the flea men.
We talked about that because as Bloodborne, as much as we both really like it, it's so unified in aesthetic that it does get wearying at a certain point. Just like the color palette being the same, and you spend so much time in the city and just kind of areas around that, and they branch out a little bit. But this is such a strikingly different aesthetic and color palette that it just feels good to be here. Like this is my favorite area in the game probably, and I think it's really telling that the reason why it is because it's so different than that.
Yep. So, like we usually do, we have some theses around these. I kind of broke this one up into story and play, and we can kind of add to these. But kind of what I got from this is that From hasn't forgotten how to do short stories. Kind of as we said here, both looking back to any of the levels from Demon Souls or the Dark Souls 1 DLC, any of the myriad spokes in Dark Souls 2. This is a short story kind of contained within this otherwise very kind of holistic work, right? And this is kind of just another sect that has the same goals that we've seen, but they're manifesting in different ways, which is something we talked about when we talked about Bergenworth College differing from the church, etc.
And that goes back again to Dark Souls 2 and like looking at the different kingdoms and how they handle the undead threat and stuff, which is a very cool way to set up a story if you just introduce kind of an issue and then see how a bunch of different cultures deal with it. And that's really neat. And then play wise, there are a lot of things kind of hidden in plain sight here. This is ambush central with a couple of different gimmicks for that, all of which I think kind of work. Like I like fighting all the enemies in this area, except possibly the ticks creatures in the beginning, which I think is a huge difficulty wall and the hardest part of this.
They are awful and they are hard and they are gross. But man, I've never yelled as loud as I have playing a Souls game as when, well, not the ticks, but like the gargoyles. Oh, what a well done ambush the first time you're in.
Yep.
Those things are called forgotten children of antiquity, I think.
Are you shitting me?
That's what that is what they are called in the guide.
Yeah.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, forgotten child of antiquity.
Yeah, there is no reason for them to be called that.
No,
Well,
it just
again,
sounds
it's from
rad.
game.
Yeah, it just.
I didn't know that.
Like,
I have the guide, and I've never really dug through it that much. Oh
Yeah,
man,
so-
that is just such a well done moment.
Some of the enemies, they have really special names.
Yeah.
But like, I love that hidden in plain sight thing, because this is immediately a very foreboding place. You're put off your guard because it's something so new. And especially the way you get here is so strange, but like that kind of abates and the place feels a little bit safe and sterile. Right. But then you just kind of like, you're walking through this place that has more statues than people, and like it's just kind of frozen in time, and you get that am I an intruder here kind of feel? Yes, you are, because here's this stuff kind of coming out of the walls to get you and stop you.
How does that contrast with like the first time you walk into Majula in Dark Souls 2?
Yeah.
That almost feels like it's a village kind of like left behind by time almost.
Yeah, but in a welcoming sense. It's both the same.
Yeah,
it's the
it's
same
true.
kind of idea. It's like the pleasure of isolation and the terror of it, kind of put together. How you get here? We're gonna park here for a second because it's really interesting. One, finding like an invitation with your name on it from something like this is such a good like fiction hook thing. Like, I'm going to begin all of my Call of Cthulhu tabletop games like this. Like, it's so good. Like, if you just go into like this haunted clinic and it's like, oh, there's this thing with my name on it. Like, that's amazing. But then you remember, and it's really clever because it's been so long since you've been there. This was probably taken off your person when you got here.
Yeah.
Like, this could be why you're in Yarnum. Like, it could be, obviously you were sick. Probably you get the blood treatment in the beginning, but like what actually drew you here could be this invitation, and they just, when they gave you the blood treatment, which like erased your memories, you don't come into this knowing, as a character like you do in Dark Souls 2. Like, this could have brought you here. Annalise is fishing for people to do this work for her.
Yeah.
And ultimately we find out, get her out, or make her free. But it's just so cool. Like, this has my name on it. That's so weird.
Yeah.
That's great. And that's not even the fucking, is it metal? The fact that you come in an undead drawn carriage through the sky.
Yep. Well, so I forgot that I picked up the summons. And so I'm just kind of going through and just doing like a little bit of farming in Hemwick, because that's a really good place to get a bunch of blood vials. This is back pre-patch before you could really, really stock up. And I guess I just triggered it at some point, and then I walked down, and then this is one of those moments, kind of like getting picked up by the amygdala or whatever. Like, just there are a couple of those where the way I described it was, oh, this just blew the back of my head off.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what the rules are, what the size and shape of this is anymore.
And the other thing that's really interesting here to me is that how optional the area is, because I mean it's totally optional to go into the back room and get that summons too. Like, you really have to explore to get there. You've got to be willing to like go down a path that you absolutely do not need to go down and is dangerous as hell.
Yeah. It's 2 levels of hidden.
Hemwick is technically optional too, so 3 levels.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I felt like I got led into Hemwick a lot easier. Like I feel like I explored at least part of it before I went into the back of the clinic.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, the moment you explore the area and then the carriage shows up, that's just a what the fuck moment. It's so great.
It's really good. And then, like, God, the detail of when you arrive and the horses being dead, that's so creepy and cool.
And they're not just dead, like, they've
been dead forever.
Yeah. They're frozen, because it's winter. It's winter. Weird. But they're also desiccated and completely like picked over.
Yeah, you have no idea. Like, I got the impression that time had passed, or I was traveling through time, just because I'm used to that as a thing. But it's just like, oh, these things, I knew they were undead when they first came there, so dying doesn't actually, rotting does not have the mark of time attached to it necessarily. But I was just like, oh, they've frozen to death. Like, they've said, they got here, and when I've got out of this carriage, time has passed.
It's only in a Souls game that you'd look at a carriage, drawn by these undead, frozen over horses. You go, yeah, let's take a ride.
Yeah,
let's go.
It sounds good.
Well, I could call an Uber, or I could get in this carriage.
I want to get everywhere this way. Like anytime I can travel, I want to find an invitation with my name on it, and then have.
Okay. Here's the thing. Do you want it exactly this way, or do you want it the same way, except when it pulls up, a skeletal hand extends from the window of a cockpit you can't get into and does the one finger beckoning? Well, no,
because I was on board up until that last bit.
I wanted to do that, but I wanted to blast Kanye too. Is that maybe that's off brand? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
And if we should all move to San Francisco and make a really disruptive app that summons a skeletal carriage.
We're not that far from that, actually. There's Uber, there's Lyft, and then there's unmanned horse-drawn undead carriage.
Okay, wait a minute. What if we disrupt the hearse industry?
Yeah. You never know when you need a hearse.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying.
I'm trying to imagine what the app's going to look like for this. It's going to be depressing as fuck.
It's going to look like a 1997 GeoCities with rotating skulls.
Yeah. Blink tag. Yeah. Blink tag skull. I love it.
No, but it's not for carrying bodies around. Something, you just get in there. It's kind of like a stretch limo. Maybe you're back there, you fuck for a bit, and then you get out and you're on the other side of town. And then if you pay a little bit extra, you can get the Dragula from Monsters.
Yeah, undead carriage. Yeah, take me to the Hot Topic. Let's go.
Yeah. You've always been there.
Why do I hear the rattling of chains? That's just my wallet.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in a band. Here's a flyer.
But you are absolutely right in that the whole experience of just getting to Cainhurst is A, so radically different from the rest of the game, and B, such a WTF moment. It's one of my favorite things that make no sense whatsoever. You get into this thing and it's just awesome. It's just you're overwhelmed by it. And I really love the art direction of the ride over. It puts you in a different space.
Yeah. It's super good. It's one of my favorite moments in the game for sure. And when you get out in the courtyard,
it's kind of a bummer you can only do it. I'm sorry. It's kind of a bummer you can only do it once.
Yeah. Well, there's YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the downside of being able to fast travel as easily in the game is that you don't get those moments. And maybe it'd get old after a while, but when I went back to replay through this area, I couldn't revisit that unless I had started a character.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a bummer.
There's actually, I just found this out from looking online for trivia stuff, but you can actually cut yourself off from this area entirely if you don't light that first lamp and then die on Logarius.
Oh, wow.
This might have been pre-patched, they might have patched it. But initially that would happen because the carriage would not come again. And if you, not even just if you die from Logarius, even if you kill Logarius and then light that torch, you can't backtrack from Logarius. So you can actually cut off the entire level.
Oh, you get locked at that boss area.
Yeah, because you have to do that little drop down to get down there.
Huh.
I don't even know why I brought that up. It's it seemed to make sense at the time.
It just shows that there's whatever you're doing in this specific area, you're committing to it, and
I appreciate it when you can.
It's so optional that you could totally screw it up and never see it again.
Yeah. So let's talk about this difficulty wall that is the courtyard, which I think these enemies, these bloodlicker things, are among the hardest of enemies in the game.
Yeah, I've never successfully killed one.
Oh wow!
Wait, really?
I wouldn't quite as far as say that, but
no,
I do find them hard.
I'm serious. I've just I fought them a bunch of times. I even did it here for the show, and I got one down to about maybe a quarter, and it's you know what? This actually isn't worth it.
Yeah, you can avoid them.
Yeah.
So the blood, just so we're clear, these are the ones that jump and have the giant bloodsucker things, or are these the really small snake things?
No, the big guys, the guys with the descended blood bellies.
I actually. Once I finally got comfortable killing them, I was farming them at that point in the game.
Oh wow!
It took a while, and it was not A+ perfect. There were a couple times when I definitely died, but I kind of forced myself to learn their patterns and figure out how I could react to those with the gear that I had. And it turned out to get me quite a lot of blood shards. They're still I mean, I still think they are a terrifying enemy, and they're definitely one of the hardest in the game, though.
They're so aggressive and they can stun lock you. In my experience, if I can sidestep that first jump, I'm golden and can usually combo them to death. If I don't, then they usually combo me to death.
And they're just gross.
Yeah, they've got that long hair.
I mean,
Cole, did
if
you
you
find
take a moment and you think about like what they're doing to you when they kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the really disturbing part of that monster design.
one of my favorite words, exsanguinate.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've never fought them, Cole, did you go to the corner where there's the one that's
non-aggressive?
One?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. What's not non-aggressive? It can't attack you because it's too full on blood.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like the tick.
That one is great. If you kill it, then it just explodes, and there's a huge blood stain on the ground that stays
It's like a weird metaphor for all the characters in the game, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
I love that so much. Like, too full, can't fight.
I love the. Get over here. I love the idea that this may be what the Cainhurst residents became.
Yeah,
like I love that this might have been their version of beastliness. Right?
Everything here was once human, you know, and it does feel like it was their version of beastliness. Like the same thing, kind of depending on how you're exposed to it. You know, like the different kinds of blood could have a different effect.
Yeah. The only thing that throws a little bit of a wrench into that is the presence of those little parasite worms actually down in that little crevasse, which those are linked to Loran and also to kind of the Loran silver beast, which we're going to find later. I don't quite know how to square those away.
Remind me what who Loran was?
That's one of the Thumerian towns. That's a Chalice dungeon kind of place.
It's the first one that fell to the Scourge, I think.
Yeah,
right. It was Loran. And that gives this more connection to Thumeria if you want to go that route too. The fact
in some ways, the parasite larvae were because they're absolutely optional in this area, right? But
they're just down in that pit.
wouldn't be a Souls game unless I was like, hey, I can go kill that, and then I die multiple times. And they were super frustrating too.
Yeah, well,
their hitbox is so small,
and they do so much damage immediately.
Yeah, those things are frustrating to fight. And this is actually something that's worth picking up. Like I've talked about how I think Bloodborne has a treasure problem a bunch of times, but this thing down in the ravine is a really good blood gem.
Yeah,
and is worth picking up. You're not going to go through all that strum and drang just to get numbing mist.
Yeah,
which I could also see them doing.
There's almost no way to go down there and get that without being surprised and likely killed by them.
Well, they come out of the walls. Like they actually come out of little holes in the wall.
And they're so hard to see that, like, especially depending on how you're spec'd or like how you're leveled, like you may not even before you find them, they may kill you.
Yeah.
I love the visual design of the outside of this castle too, because we've already kind of like walked up this big grand hallway that feels like the outside of a Liam Lois, and now we're in this courtyard, and I can't like just overstate enough. It's awesome that this game has a winter stage.
Yeah, I love snow levels, just like how they look.
I love the empty fountain that's full of skeletons.
Yep.
Yes.
On board.
But I also like that this is so hostile, both visually, thematically, and kind of from a gameplay stance because of these just fucking flea tick things that like I'm making a, one or two deaths in, I'm making a beeline for this door to, because that feels safe. Which, when have you ever felt safe running into a castle in Dark Souls?
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But it's interesting because once you get in there, like it is kind of safe for a while. The way that the contrast with this hall where things are not aggressive until you are here, which is really cool because when you get into this hall, it's kind of business as usual. Like it's this huge Gothic hall. There are candles burning on the ground, and there are these little servants like just scrubbing it. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Cainhurst servants, but the things don't attack you until you actually get close to them or attack them. Which is pretty great.
I seem to remember when you walk in there that like you immediately hear some noises that do not.
You hear
make
sobbing.
Yeah. Like I just had that feeling like as I approached and I heard the sobbing and the crying, which we're gonna get to in a second. But like seeing the Cain servant, you're like, is that the thing that's sad? Is that the thing that's crying? Like should I approach that? And
I've had shitty jobs too.
Leave you alone.
I know what it's like to just like I don't want to do this job.
Yeah.
I go home, play Mario Maker. I want to scrub
All day, every day.
Yeah, like,
Fun fact: if you plug in the headset that comes with the PS4 and you say you missed a spot, the entire castle aggros.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be that guy. Is that for real? Hang
No,
on.
no, it's not. Sorry.
Damn it!
Oh, wouldn't the world be just a little bit more magical?
Really would.
Man, what if that would be a really weird way to hide things in this game.
Yep.
It says a lot that I didn't put that past From at all. Like I thought, that's possible. They do that.
You have to propose to Annalise yourself. Like you have to give the ring while simultaneously saying, "Will you marry me?" And then it happens. Oh boy.
So
So this is just full of these servants which scrub, and these guys are not hard to fight.
No.
These first versions, but they come in later variations. And then Ghost, and we've seen Ghost, and these are kind of a mix between the Ghost we've seen before in the game, where you cannot lock onto them if you're a certain distance from them.
Right.
So it's a little bit like the low visibility that we saw a lot in Dark Souls 2, and the intangibleness that we saw in New Londo.
Yeah.
Back in Dark Souls 1.
So a couple things about the designs on these ghosts. They are very tall and very gaunt, giving them kind of a Pthumerian appearance. And they are blindfolded, at least the ones that have their heads. I believe even the decapitated ones are blindfolded as well. In contrast to the statues we see, which are the only statues in the game, really, by a wide margin, that are not, they don't have their eyes obscured, right?
Yeah.
Also, their hands are bound, just like the Yharnam is, the one female Pthumerian that we see and fight later in the game. So that is another thing that people tend to kind of point to for the connection. I like the idea. Well, it's horrible, but I like the idea that as the agents of the church went through kind of killing everybody, like the knights, they went down, fighting for the cause. And so they're not going to linger around. Right. But the women, they're innocent. The women and children are innocent. And kind of after they were killed, they were, they had their eyes obscured because, hey, we're a church. We do that. Right.
Yeah, and had their hands bound so they couldn't escape, and they died that way.
Yeah, and so like that's how it came back, was like this weird conversion to their way of not needing eyes.
Yeah, that makes sense, and then they just detect you now because they have ghost powers.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I like that a lot. Because we as we'll find out later, the executioners have already run rampant through here. So they have more or less conquered this place, even though it doesn't seem like it at first glance.
Right. And despite the fact that this is the site of a kind of genocide, it is squeaky clean because of these servants. Like this appears, the candles are lit, the floors are shiny.
It's very romantic.
Yeah.
So hang on. The executioners have gone through. They've run rampant in this place. They've killed other people. They left the servants to clean.
Yeah. Well,
but seriously, like that's kind of fucked up.
or the servants were just not murdered because they were below. All the vile bloods and the were murdered. The women and servants were left because they're not warriors.
Real talk. Those servants have probably tasted a little bit of blood too.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to say that there's no one that's innocent in this game.
I feel like they probably are scrubbing the floor with blood.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it's not clean at all. That's super cootie. That's not cool.
Yeah. But, if you're not going to brush your teeth, at least rinse your mouth out with blood.
I never once felt like I had too much of a problem with the castle spirits. And as we talk about some of them later on, I thought all the encounters that you have with them are pretty interesting. You referenced the kind of the low visibility stuff from Dark Souls 2, and that's one of I know Dark Souls 2 doesn't have the biggest reputation in the world for the Souls games, but I love that area.
Yeah.
I love the way that it was designed. And so playing with that perception of you can't see something, but it's there, and then suddenly it shows up. The first few times it makes that really interesting. And then as we get deeper into the castle, I think there's even some variance there that really works every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And we're both big defenders of DS2 in general, and also that mechanic a lot, like we talked about in the show. We're on the same page there. What they do mostly here is they just tempt you into killing servants. There will be a ghost near a servant, and if you kill the servant, because you can lock onto him, the ghost comes up. But none of them are hard. No. And this entire area is not known for its difficulty, kind of until the boss, which is a fun fight, but took me a while to defeat him.
The one thing that's tricky about the ghosts, especially like even here early on, before we get to some of the more designed encounters, is that there are always more of them around you than you think.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you're not entirely aware, then you can find yourself surrounded.
Yeah. But it's always easy. They move really slow. They telegraph their attacks really, really clearly.
Yeah.
Like you can always just back up and take a moment to heal.
Yeah.
Like during the entire, even when they literally surround you, it's trivial to get around them.
Yeah.
You get an item here. You get the I've never really spent any time with the Reiter Palask.
Reiter Palash, yeah.
Reiter Palask, which is a gunblade. Which is the one of the Cainhurst kind of weapons.
Yeah. More notable than that weapon, which it's pretty neat. It's like everything here you get here kind of scales with blood tinge a little bit, so it's good for those builds. But the fact that you get it out of a chest is super weird to me.
Right.
Oh yeah.
There are not chests in this game.
There are a bunch of them here though.
Yep.
Like weirdly enough, like there are chests in this game, but there aren't very many.
Again, it makes me think a lot about this being an area that could have been part of Demon Souls 2.
Yeah, for sure.
If you want to believe in a world where that was actually being designed at some point,
yeah.
Like
This
starts leading a lot of credence to that. Not a weapon that I've used a whole lot because I don't have a ton of experience with blood tinge, even on the characters that I've started with it. Like I just never.
Yeah, because why would you? Like you have to wait until you get to Cainhurst for anything to open up.
Right, but if you watch people playing with those kind of builds, it does seem like a really interesting weapon to use.
Yeah.
It's the thing I read a lot is that it's good if you're using a non-standard offhand weapon. So like I use a cannon on my current character and a torch, so I don't do, and I switch to a gun only when I know I'm going to be doing visceral attacks. So this allows you to do visceral attacks and interrupts while still having a torch and flamethrower or cannon or Rosmarius equipped in your hand. So it's like that's a big reason why people like it that I've read online. But I've never done a blood tinge build, and my I don't think builds are different enough in Bloodborne to really want to go through the whole game to try to make one.
Sure.
My personal prejudice. One of the things about when you get upstairs though, and this is something that I love, is you go into the side room, the banquet room, which the banquet room, there's no food on these tables. It's all like statuary and riches and the like.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, because when you first go through it, it reads as a banquet and you're like, okay, this is where somebody was eating here, but they're all eating fucking candelabras and stuff. Like, it's like they just laid out a dining table with riches.
Like they're dragons?
They got so drunk on blood, they're just like, fuck it, we're gonna eat this too.
I'll eat a goddamn ruby. I don't give a shit. Like, yeah, dare me to.
Annalise. That feels like the second Kanye reference. Like, I'm so baller, I'm just gonna eat a ruby.
Yeah, it's so creepy. Like a dining table laid out with inedible things. That's up there with like that's a shortcut to horror for me.
Yeah,
like that's a creepy idea.
And if you're looking at it as less of like I wonder what they were doing with all that, and that this was just kind of like set up for a banquet that was interrupted when the executioners decided to wreck shop.
Yeah,
like the food was there and it was about ready to be brought out, but there was the slaughter.
Or if it wasn't food, maybe this is the executioners like divvying up loot or like doing inventory.
Yeah, it could have been repurposed by them. Yeah.
Yeah, you divide, I split, or you split, I choose. Yeah.
But on first glance, there's just so many things that don't add up that just makes it so strange and
subtly
you can't look away, but you're horrified by it.
Well, there are also portraits. On the walls, some of which people have surmised is actually Annalise holding her daughter, which may or may not be Ariana.
Yeah, which is interesting.
What?
That's something that I've read in a couple of places. I don't know if it's a bunch of people kind of citing one particular source. We know from Ariana's dress that she may have lineage in Cainhurst that may or may not be kind of related to just the fact that they already had this dress, and let's just put it on her because that's what we want her to look like. But
I don't want to believe it. So I have a thing where like fictions just become too small and everything is so connected. Yeah, I just simply don't want to believe that to be true.
Yeah. I mean, well, the other thing, if you wanted to, make a wild supposition, which, like, my opinion, I don't disagree with you, Cory. Like, I also will sometimes feel like that about things.
I don't want things to be too pat. I agree.
Yeah, I don't want things to. Yeah, I don't want things to be too pat. I also think it's fun to kind of go in the weeds a little bit, as long as you just kind of take it with a grain of salt. And like another thing is that Ariana also gives birth to like a moonchild kind of thing, and we get this idea that Annalise wants that, and maybe she can't because of this like mask thing that she's forced to wear, or maybe she needs more strength through this this blood sperm, I guess. But the idea being that she is another, there are other women who don't give birth to cosmic entities here, and there's got to be something in common between fake Yosefka and Ariana that the what's her head, the nun, like Adela, doesn't have, or Eileen the Crow or something like that. So I think you can make that argument.
That just makes her story so much more tragic.
She's already very tragic.
Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy.
That makes it. I'm literally heartbroken here just thinking about this. And the worst part is that you're starting to make sense. And now I'm coming around to it.
Yeah, I have empathy for Annalise. I really do.
Yeah,
I mean, even if that child isn't Ariana, and that is Annalise in there, which we don't know because she's wearing that bird mask. Right. If we assume that to be true, who knows if she is seeking this kind of celestial child as a way to make up for the loss of her first one, or something like that. Like there are any number of motivations that you could put in there that are not just straight hubris, even though everything about Cainhurst is hubris defined.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. After you get through that weird room where everyone's eating jewels, you go onto the ramparts, and that's another thing that I really like about this level, and I realized I like it a lot in Souls levels, is areas that mix indoor and outdoor is something that like speaks to me in these things. Like to traverse this, you can't just go through the building. Like you actually have to go outside the building. There are areas that are, and you saw this in Anne Orlando a lot, and that's something I've decided I really like in these levels. So you go out onto the ramparts.
Yeah, and this is where we start encountering these lost children of antiquity, kind of blending in with other statuary that is more conventionally human.
Good.
Some of which are children too, like they're statues of children, which is weird. But this is just standing stock still right on the middle, and you think, da da da, I'm going to walk by this, and then no, it's going to do a grab attack. It's the closest thing this game has to a mimic.
Yeah, yeah. These guys designs are really creepy too. Like they're just their heads being too big.
Exactly.
It reminds me of the man-eaters, actually.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
Yeah, but these guys, they don't show up an awful lot, and I'm kind of happy they don't overuse it. But yeah, they are difficult to fight, especially if you're not good at dodging their first attack. Otherwise, you have to kind of just hope you can soak their gnawing on your skull.
Yeah, they do grab attacks, which like I've complained about enough on the podcast.
Yeah.
But they're big grab attack guys. A lot of times they're positioned in places where you can actually knock them off the ledge they're on by shooting them.
Yep.
Which they don't fly.
I love it whenever something falls off of a ledge in one of these games, because it just holds still if they don't have the animation in there, and then it just
yeah. my home planet needs me.
Yeah. But then there are those gifs of enemies in Dark Souls 1 that have the falling animations.
Yeah, but they're never seen.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like awesome stuff that I don't think Illusory did that, but he first brought it to my attention. And it's great. That Channeler falling is like one of my favorite things. It's so goofy. Have you seen that, Corey?
I have not. No.
Someone did an album of all the fall animations from Dark Souls, and tons of enemies that would never fall have these really goofy fall animations.
Like the mushroom, like the mushroom men have really funny ones.
Really? It's so good. Yeah, I'll put in the show notes.
Yeah,
absolutely. I can't wait to see it.
It's really funny. So you make your way past here, and then this is where we get our first evidence that the executioners have been here, because we find a dead one, and we find his clothing.
Yes.
So we get the executioner stuff, which gets us a little bit of information on these guys. And it turns out these guys are a faction. Like this is a faction we can join, weirdly enough. So they have these goofy helmets, and we learn a little bit more about Logarius, who the more that you read about him makes me think that before the sorry state we find him in was one of the only like purely good characters in the game.
Yeah.
Like Logarius seems like a really solid guy who at least like he believed in, he had the right idea, even if his movement got infested by crazies.
Yeah, kind of co-opted, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I especially have more the sympathy for him if they were around before the Healing Church proper was.
Yeah.
Because his kind of slogan, like, is like I always say, is kind of just like the mantra for any misguided good doer, I guess. Acts of goodness are not always wise, and acts of evil are not always foolish. But regardless, we shall always strive to be good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it kind of makes sense that he'd be one of the purely good characters when you really think about what ended up happening to him. Like, because nobody good comes out well.
Yeah, he's a tragic story.
Yeah,
like what happened to this guy is super sad too. Like this is a real prepare to cry rich area. So we go back inside to this library, which is this big kind of multi-room library, reminding me a little bit of Seath's area. Yeah, Duke's Archives. You don't do quite as much silliness with moving staircases and stuff, but it's a little bit like Duke's. And we're introduced to a couple new variants of the enemies we've seen before. And it's worth noting that as you move further on this level, you get more and more aggressive variants of enemies. Like the servants and ghosts you find in the first area will not, the very first area won't really attack you if you just walk through. Here we're running into actually dangerous enemies that are very aggressive, and the density is huge. I think
some of that is. I'm sorry to interrupt. I keep doing.
It's okay.
I think some of that is that you really are encroaching on an area where you don't belong.
Yeah,
and like the farther you get in, the more, I don't know if it's fair to say answers you get, but the more answers you get, the more it's kind of like these presences are pushing you back. That's like classic horror right there.
Yeah,
it's just really brilliant.
Yeah,
and classic Dark Souls.
Yeah,
like that's a big
classic Dark Souls as well. Like as the difficulty ramps up, they very kindly give you an elevator back to the beginning of the level. So this is one of our classic Hemwick-esque, one lantern, one bonfire levels where it's just the concentric circles and then you cut across it.
Yep. Again, Painted World style. Right. So the different versions we now have Headless Ghost, who don't attack you, they just paralyze you by screaming. And then these blowgun servants, which either will do damage or inflict a status effect that I couldn't figure out what it did forever.
Yeah.
It puts a rune on the back of your neck, and it makes enemies that are closer to you more aggressive.
Right.
So that took me so long to figure it out, because most of the time when I got hit by it was when I was on the ladder heading up to Logarius.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. But
I felt like I don't know if I ever had that status effect put on me, but I definitely felt like they I guess I did. Now I'm remembering it. But I felt like more often they would stun me just enough so that the ghosts would hit me.
Yeah.
They totally throw off my timing.
Yeah.
And one of them could mask the other. Like they could give you that aggressive rune, but you also get stunned for a second, and then they attack you, and they would have anyway.
Yeah.
As far as I know, that's the only time the status effect shows up in the game.
I mean, outside of like something maybe in the chalices that I haven't seen, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, maybe it pops up there, but I don't know.
Yeah. I love that rune because it's an Ankh, right? That and the fact that this is Cainhurst makes me think that somebody just dropped their White Wolf book.
Yeah.
And thought, well, wait a minute.
Yeah. The masquerade is strong.
Yeah.
The old world of darkness.
And so you also get some of these some of the servants that have the little rapier, which end up being like the flea men, like we mentioned from Castlevania.
These guys are hard too. Like these guys are pretty serious.
Yeah. So you have to do a little bit of like trickery, because if you just keep heading upstairs, you kind of dead end until, again, like Anne Orlando, you notice that there's a busted window that again takes you back outside into kind of this other sealed off section of the library.
Yep. Which you find the knight set here, which this is a favorite armor of mine. I think this looks really baller, other than the wig. It doesn't have a helmet, it has a wig, which I think is silly.
What do you have against wigs? Everybody loves wigs.
I'm more of a Tory guy.
Boo.
Nope. 10 points. I give you that.
No, I'm only angry because you thought of it quicker than I did.
Am I remembering this area right? There's like a hidden room here too.
There's a bookshelf that moves that you have to open up, that allows you to kind of open up the shortcut, so you can go directly from the shortcut to the rooftops with the that lead to Logarius.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
What I remember, I mean, it's one of, and this is a sign of a good Souls game, but I definitely remember feeling like, specifically in this library area, the way that it loops around was a little bit confusing, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Dark Souls is how everything kind of converges on itself as you're navigating through the different areas, and that's something that Dark Souls 2 didn't do very well. I liked how in Cainhurst that happened here.
For sure.
Like just kind of the way that it's designed to loop you around.
Yeah. And this area, I mean, that's the clever, like, because like a lot of people who are just like, oh man, I missed the shortcuts of Souls games, and then we have those like worthless shortcuts that we get in Yharnam, and they're like, man, we're back. We're back. Yeah. Miyazaki's back. These are the shortcuts. But no, these are the shortcuts that are the useful ones. So this is the expression of good shortcutting in Dark Souls. That painted world shit, like just keep looping back, keep bringing you back to familiar areas, but with new access. And it just feels good and works.
Yeah.
You make your way out onto the rooftops, and there's kind of a couple more lost children, and a couple of little bits of unsure footing.
There's that one lost child that has the red eyes, which I can't really understand. That feels more difficult.
Yeah.
Are these the ones that drop down?
These are the ones that drop down, because you go get some treasure on one section of the roof, and they kind of swoop it.
Crap out of you.
Yeah. Whenever a lost children comes on you like that, I call it an Amber Alert. That's the fear you feel.
Okay, no points for that. No points.
Amber Alert.
The ones that drop on you at the kind of the end of that one parapet, like they jump off of that turret. That's different than the red-eyed one, which is just kind of chilling out on the slope of the roof.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But when you kind of go from that to needing to like strategically fall and run along geometry that doesn't look like you ought to run across it, it's like the game turns into Eco for a second. I love it.
Yeah, it's super cool. It just looks really evocative. So you head further up, and we get to another sloped roof section, and we spot our boss at the end, which is Martyr Logarius. Yeah, so the way Logarius reveals himself to you is fantastic. This is a good cutscene.
Just you have this desiccated hulk of a man who's got a beard as long as himself and no skin on his bones, really, just kind of animating and with grim resolve standing up and taking out his weapons to fight you. Like, this is some kind of weird inverse version of Gwyn.
Yeah, he's shaking the ice off as well.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally frozen at parts and just kind of crackles as he gets up, which is super cool. And this fight is really pretty great too. Yeah. I think this is one of my favorites in the game. Mm-hmm. I don't like fighting beasts very much in Bloodborne. I like fighting people. And this is a really interesting person fight.
Yeah. And it's a little bit different than what you would expect from like the phase kind of standpoint too, because when you first start fighting him, he's kind of casting with his awesome scythe catalyst these kind of very kind of like spread shot skull magic missibles.
It's the same thing. If you get the Executioner's Glove, which is a hunter's tool, you can shoot those.
Oh, nice.
And you find that here too. We didn't mention it, but that you can actually do that spell.
Nice.
The big exploding one that he does, you cannot do.
Yeah. But as you whittle him down, he gets more aggressive, but he stops kind of doing his ranged attack. So like he goes kind of in the other direction, whereas a lot of these will let you get close to them until they force you to be far away. Here, he's kind of keeping you at distance until he decides to close the distance himself.
and he just gets super aggressive. There's some kind of interesting tricks in this fight too. So like halfway through the thing, he casts a spell to buff himself, and if you let him do it, he gains like amazing poise. Like you can no longer interrupt his attacks, and you can't stagger him with that. If you interrupt though his buff, which you can do by doing a charge attack at his back and getting a backstab on him, he no longer has this kind of magical armor on. Yeah. And then you can, do visceral attacks on him, which, as far as I can tell, is like is the way to do it. Like I beat him without doing it. I didn't realize that trick the first time I played him. And it took me like a billion tries. Yeah. And then this new time I'm playing through for the game, I'm like, okay, I need to, I read up that I can interrupt that thing. Yeah. And then he becomes manageable once you realize you can interrupt his attacks.
I felt
in the
like
second phase.
I felt like a real killer when I fought this guy the first time, because I had really gained my confidence with visceral attacks, and that's pretty much how I got him down. Like after only a handful of tries, when a lot of bosses at this point were, requiring a lot more effort out of me. And again, this feels like Gwyn, because that's how you take out Gwyn is by parrying and riposting.
This is the only boss fight that I one-shot in the game.
Oh wow. Yeah. First try. That's cool.
I don't know how it happened, because I watched friends really struggle with this guy, and I attribute it mostly to luck. I did not do a ton of the visceral attacks. I think I might have pulled off like one. I think it was just sheer luck and like as much dodging as I could possibly pull off. But the only one shot I got.
It's not necessarily. This isn't necessarily what happened, but I'm just. I'm not saying this to take away from your glory. Do you know about the memory leak thing? Or do you know about the memory leak thing that was in an earlier patch?
Yes.
Okay.
That was not the case on this one.
Yeah. I didn't know. I'd never heard of it happening with Logarius. I just know that my first try at Abritus was memory leaked, and my concurrent tries with my subsequent tries with Abritus are nightmares.
Yeah, I remember specifically like really shutting stuff down and not sleeping in it, or not letting the PS4 rest or anything like that because of that bug. And I didn't want anybody to go, oh, you just cheesed it and you're a baby. Bloodborne's for babies. Don't
I didn't even know about it. I was like, oh, Abritus is easy, and then no, she's not.
No, I honestly think, and I do remember, like, I was just, because everybody had told me, and he does get so much more aggressive as he's phasing.
Yeah.
Like I just tried to be really, really careful. And in other situations where I would like be a little bold and I would really go in and try to do like a combo or something like that, I was just slow and steady wins the race on this one.
Yeah. You can definitely really beat him by kind of attrition that way.
Yeah, and I hadn't considered the idea that it's a lot like Gwyn, but in a lot of ways it is.
Yeah, which is cool. Except that he's like a flying sword sorcerer, though. Like he's like Gwyn, except that he has a magic sword he can stick in the ground that summons other swords, which is pretty rad.
Yep.
I like that a lot.
When he does that, you can go attack the sword and kind of dispel that AOE.
Which you want to do. You can't just fight him because you'll get interrupted by swords because there's no poise in this game. So I mean, essentially just like visceral attacks, but I really like this fight because again, I always know what's going on. Like it doesn't feel like I'm just stuck in a bunch of particles and strips of flesh like it does when I'm fighting Amelia or Cleric Beast or anything like that. Like it just feels like a one-on-one fight that uses the mechanics that I've been learning.
And
I really like
it's in a cool area too. Like I always love the Souls game when you end up on top of a rooftop and you're having like some like that's a cool feeling. It gave me that same vibe as the first time you encounter the gargoyles and you're up on the rooftop.
Yeah.
Except not quite as chaotic fight as fighting all those gargoyles, especially on New Game Plus.
Of all the Souls games that were going to give this to me, I'm very disappointed that Bloodborne didn't have me fight a boss on the roof of a train.
Oh, I guess if it were going to happen,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That would have fit. That would have totally fit.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take it and turn it. Like, imagine you're on top, you have a boss fight with a very small boss on top of the carriage with the other horses.
Yeah, and you're very small as well, like you get shrunk down.
Yeah, it's like a boss larva.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not so much a fight as you step on something.
Well, I feel like you probably get shrunk down. Annalise's size magic shrinks you down, and you have to, because we haven't. Let's be fair about this. We've never had a level in a Souls game where either you get really small or become a giant.
I think what you really need in a Souls game is a mix with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah,
I think that's the next.
You need Giant Land.
Rick of Moranis.
Yes. Oh man, yeah, Prince Rickard or Rickard of Romanus, whatever the guy's name is. Ricard Romanus. Ricard Romanus. That's not
You're
correct.
actually now you're getting really close to Souls territory. They're gonna steal that from Joseph.
Getting close to Ricard Romano. Like, hey, Deborah.
Oh God. Oh, I think we're devolving at this point.
It happens.
It happens every time, man. It's good though that we're devolving now because we have a bunch of lore speculation shit coming up. So
yes, we do.
We can be fucking goofy. Let's talk about Logarius though and what he's doing here and what happened to him.
Mm-hmm. So he's wearing a crown, but it's not because he's a king.
No, he's wearing a crown so no one else can wear it, which is an interesting. Like I never thought about that, but like. That is a good way to keep a crown away from people. I would have put it in a box, but like he's wearing it. So what Logarius did was he showed up here. He found out that he led his executioners. They did their bloody work, like they all the things we've seen so far. And there aren't people left in Cainhurst really; they're just ghosts. But when he got to Queen Annalise, she is immortal, and we'll meet her in a moment. So he became what Alfred calls as a blessed anchor. He essentially, this is his purpose, is to stop you from getting in and stop Annalise from getting out. And he's dedicated his whole life, like countless years. He's become this desiccated, like lich fighter, kind of thing. His will to live is so strong that he's transcended time and being frozen to death. And everything, because there's nothing to suggest he's not human. Mm-hmm. When we assume he's a hunter the same way Alfred is. He's just so dedicated.
Tall.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess he is super tall. But I get the idea that he's just like he became this, like he's like become this vigilance elemental, through this kind of mission that he's on, which is don't let anyone get into this thing, which is exactly what we fuck up and do.
Yep,
which I love.
Yeah. So you read the description on this crown, which because armor doesn't matter, I always wear this until I get the Cage of Mensis. Yeah. And it says, this is a relic of Cainhurst. Like this is how Cainhurst hid shit about their castle. And like what does he see when he sits upon his throne? Yeah, we've already been there. And he put this on, and then just before you, the walls kind of like strip away, revealing this passageway to the real throne.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you make your way up, and we are introduced to the second covenant of the game that we're going to run to. I mean, actually, it might be the first one that we've actually run to in our chronology.
Like we talked a little bit about the Hunter of Hunters,
but not how it ends, right? Did we talk about? Oh, maybe we did. Yeah, we talked about how you actually joined that covenant.
Yeah.
I can't remember if we did talk about how Eileen's questline ends.
No, it hasn't ended yet.
Yeah. So we haven't. This is the first one that you actually have access to in our chronology, even though you know about the other ones. And this actually is 2 for 1 because there are very few covenants in this game. So Annalise is in the throne room here. She's surrounded by statues, like way more than you'd ever have, which I always got the impression that she's creating the illusion of a court for herself. Which is even more sad. Like there's nobody, she has no subjects left, so just fill it with statues of people from your kingdom.
Okay, so 2 things. Annalise is a really pretty name. Second thing, like everything up to this has been great so far. Everything from Martyr Logarius on is what makes this my favorite thing.
Yeah, this is super cool. Like this is great. The way it's just like a real density of character work. That happens, which we don't run into in Bloodborne. Like fully, like I feel like half of the character work that's done is done in this scene, like in this room, of Bloodborne, because it's like these are the developed stories that are not like the suspicious man and the chapel dweller, which have like kind of way more slight kind of stories to them,
micro arcs.
Yeah. So she's the last remaining vile blood, and when you get there, you have to kneel before her. You cannot talk to her until you actually kind of pay her this respect. And if you want, you can partake of her rotted blood and join the Vile Bloods and join that covenant.
Hasty blood.
Yeah. Oh, man. Again, just a different kind of communion.
Yeah. And so the Cainhurst Vile Bloods, these are the closest to the Dark Wraiths.
Yes.
That we have in the game. They just want to hunt other hunters in order to get their blood dregs, aka blood sperm.
Do you have to mix it?
You mean mix it yourself? Like, are you?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's pre-mixed, dude.
Okay.
Even though if like depending on the scale of that item, if you look at the blood dregs and you actually like see sperm, that gives me the very disgusting image of sperm that are like visible size.
Yeah.
Which grosses me out pretty good.
Okay.
So it's the Dark Wraiths though.
Yeah.
And the way they work mechanically is that you can invade people. And if you get summoned by or you summon an executioner for help, they actually turn out to be hostile. So those are your blood enemies there. And even if you're trying to get help, if you accidentally summon an executioner, they will fight you.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool mechanic.
Yeah.
Because you're asking for help and you can actually accidentally like fight an invasion at the same time you fight. You're getting ready to fight a boss.
Yeah.
Something like that, which is pretty cool. It also opens up your 4th rune slot because there are only 3 runes that go in there and they're dedicated to covenants. And this is the least useful of them, I think, but also the easiest one to get, I think.
So you might as well put something in there.
Yeah.
What this one does, is this the one that heals you if you're below 1/8 health?
Yes.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. And then the other thing is you get the Cainhurst badge, which lets you buy the Cainhurst set from
and also the Chikage and the Evelyn, which is the pistol that has like the really boosted blood tinge.
Yep. One other thing you can do while you're collecting blood dregs for her is that if you go get the Ring of Betrothal in the Chalice dungeons, which is hard to get, she refuses, but you can propose to her.
Yeah.
With this thing,
and that's kind of some very affecting voiceover actually.
Yeah.
Because that's the first moment where she kind of like recognizes her situation. It seems like it's you kind of break through the pageantry and the ruse she set up.
Yeah. Like she says, you're very, very dear to us, but we can't do that. Yeah. And the you are her only subject at this point. So it just there's something like you run into those people who are formerly nobility or formerly rich, still acting as if they have power that they don't have. Like there's something very sad to that.
Yeah.
That this kind of recalls. Just the idea that she has to do all this pomp and circumstance, but she's a prisoner and she has no power.
Yeah.
And is still clinging to this idea of finery. It's like when you hear about those people who lose their jobs and then they end up like, taking out loan after loan in order to keep up car payments for their fancy car and keep up these images. Like that's kind of stupid and pathetic, but there's also something really sad about it.
Yeah.
Aren't you bringing her some power when you bring her the blood dregs though? Like, aren't you trying to restore her?
She wants to get pregnant. Like she wants to have a baby. And the idea is that by gaining enough power, she'll be able to have a baby.
Yeah.
But it never happens. Like there's nothing that can ever happen. But I think that is the idea is that you are giving her more power.
Yeah, and like this is supported, if you're going out there and bringing her this stuff, consuming enough blood raises you in status and makes you a more likely candidate for this surrogacy from the Great Ones, and she sees that as a way to kind of establish her line in something that is kind of grander than humanity, but she's definitely been passed over for it, and it's not going to happen. And so that lends even more kind of pathos to this.
Yeah. Like, and she's got that mask. Like that mask could be interfering with things too, which I love. Like, man, give me a magic mask and don't tell me what it does. Like, give me a magic mask that you can't take off, and then like in fiction, and then just don't specify what it does. And that's so good. Like that's just like a fiction trigger for me. Like I'm just like, imprison somebody in a mask. That's great. I really, really love that. Yeah. And it's just really creepy looking.
Yeah.
As a thing.
And so like this again kind of plays into the vampire, myth or story of immortality and kind of like the trap of the dark gift, right? Like, she's got this, she cannot die. And she is kind of, even after you kill Logarius, kind of bound to this spot. I don't know if it's by the mask or what, but, never just kind of this never ending solitude and reminder of her lost glory. Like, I don't see why the Vile Bloods are any worse than anybody else. And so like, I immediately have sympathy for her.
Yeah. No, I always kind of felt like it wasn't even that she was stuck there, but like the purpose of a queen is to sit and rule something. And the fact that the fact that you keep coming back to her is what gives her purpose.
Yeah.
And the fact that you keep coming back to her is what gives her purpose. And the fact that you keep coming back to her is what gives her purpose. And the fact that you keep coming back to her is what gives her purpose.
Yeah, you are acting a servant.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, even after this next little story beat happens,
Right.
and you literally resurrect her. Like she still has these, like, you still have to kneel to me. Like it is not, I am clinging on to this one little last bit of dignity as hard as I fucking can.
Yeah.
So one of the other things we find in this chamber, so this allows you to just open up that covenant and you can go kill some people if you want. But you find an unopened summons, which is kind of like a pass for anybody to get here. The summons the carriage.
It's like the can of Coke that gets you into Cedar Point.
Yep. Yeah, it's your golden ticket.
If you're from Ohio, you get that reference.
I figured it out from context.
Yep.
Yeah.
10 points for Cedar Point instead of Kings Island. Nice job.
Yeah.
Even though it's closer, Cedar Point is better.
We know somebody who really wants to get in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody who, in the only dialogue tree in the game has told us about Cainhurst.
Yeah, Alfred, who is our Solaire analog, and which they brilliantly subvert with this.
Do they subvert it, or do they play right into it?
No, I think
it's subverted.
Yeah, it's totally subverted. Solaire would never do this.
Okay.
Like he would like, I mean, Solaire has a tragic end when he gets what he wants, but it's not.
Oh, okay. They twist it.
He's being controlled. Yeah. Like it's a sad thing that happens to Solaire. Alfred is kind of a fucking psychopath from the start. I get
Solaire's your bro. So no matter what happens to him, he's totally your bro. I from the moment I met the dude, I got the sense that Alfred was like trying to be manipulative.
There's something that they're doing with him that's a little bit unsavory, and like
he's not a good guy, and you can hear it in the voiceover.
Yeah, which he's Solaire's voice actor.
Yep.
Which is interesting. Like they're playing on your memories of Solaire to set up this character that you think is just going to be all truth and goodness. And like, yes, Solaire goes a little crazy when he gets that bug infection, but that's the bug.
Yeah.
And he went for the bug because he was, has his naive idiot quest.
Yeah.
To find his own son.
Yeah. You can't
this
blame
guy,
Solaire, but that's Solaire's still your bro. Come on.
Okay.
He is still my bro.
Okay.
This is all this guy wanted.
I was confusing the tragic end versus like this is what was always in his heart to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he got driven crazy. I think this is just always what he wanted. So you give him the thing, and he's like, "Oh, thank you. I've heard about their pompous parties."
Yeah, I love that detail so much. It's just like those fucking assholes. God,
They're the kids from Rich Kid Camp across the lake.
Camp Tiger Paw.
Yeah, Camp Tiger Claw. Camp Tiger Blood. Across the lake.
Wait a minute, is like the counselor Charlie Sheen?
Yeah.
5 years ago, half five.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's a very dated reference.
Yep.
But then you go back after you've done it, and this is one of my favorite cutscenes in the game. And again, it has so little to do with the main story, but it's just so good.
I'm gonna cut in the dialogue. It's so creepy. This is horror, Gary.
Master, look, I've done it. I've done it. I smashed and pounded and grounded this rotten siren into fleshy pink pulp. There, you filthy monstrosity. What good's your immortality now? Try stirring up trouble in this sorry state. All mangled and twisted, with every inside on the outside for all the world to see.
Oh man, it's so good. That the line, like every inside on the outside, like thing.
For like,
the way he delivers that is so good
for all to see. Like,
yeah,
it's like this is the uncomfortable sexuality, I think, done right, and I feel bad saying that, because what he has done is ground her into a still writhing pink pulp in her. But like there's something just so unsettlingly violent about that in more ways than just what he did with Logarius's wheel. Yeah.
It is enough to like.
It chills your blood.
Yeah, it's violating the dignity of this creature that we saw is holding on to the sad dignity. When you think about it, it's not enough just to defeat a foe. It's you have to castrate them. Yep. You have to disempower her entirely. Like, and that's the point. It's like, I can't kill you, but I can reduce you to like still living swiggle bits that can't do anything.
Yeah.
and just how into it he is, and the way that he acts when you talk to him after this.
Mm-hmm.
Like his tone is just so it's really gross, and you're 100% complicit in it. You are the reason why this happened.
Yeah.
And that is a great move on From's part to make you feel like shit.
The pose that he's in, and he's got the Pyramid Head helmet on.
Yeah.
You know, and he's got his arms stretched out. He's like in straight Shawshank pose.
Yeah. Ugh. and he wanted this because now that Logarius is dead, you know, which he wanted, you know, he wants Logarius to have died, like, and not have this reason to be alive. Logarius can be a true martyr, and that is all that this guy needed.
Yeah.
You know, he's done his thing, and he then kills himself. Yeah. At his original kind of the place where we find him.
Which I felt no sympathy for.
Right.
No, not at all. Like
any other, like in any other Souls game, you'd encounter an NPC, and if they had like died, you'd sit there and you'd wonder, oh, what happened? I feel so bad about that. But after what you've witnessed, you don't feel that way. And it's really strange how like the line about Logarius being a true martyr is really interesting. It goes to show just how completely batshit insane Alfred is. But then there's this moment too where like after you because Logarius is truly tragic. Dude's stuck there, right? He's in the waiting room of hell. But then you find Alfred, he's killed himself, and you can pick up that rune and become an executioner. And it's like, if you do that, what are you signing up for?
Yeah, it is.
Because you just had this horrible. You just got to see the example of what's become of the executioners. Why the fuck would you follow that?
Well, it's not like the thing is it's got that Souls, you know, black morality to it. Because as much as we're sympathetic to Annalise, the Vilebloods are not good.
Right.
Like as a Vileblood, you just go kill people for no reason. It's just showing that the people who hunt them with this kind of zeal, you know, those who hunt monsters are doomed to become monsters themselves. Like. You are that. Like it is you are no better because it's the zeal and the motivation and the kind of like grotesqueness with which you carry out the task that defines it.
It's a more symbolic version of the fact that the people of the Healing Church who might have hunted beasts the most became the most vile beasts themselves. Like what we see Alfred do is far more vile than anything we've seen any of the other, like, you know, just or inferred that any of the Vilebloods did. That's the way I read it anyway.
It's no good. Like you know, they did not need to be. They're no worse than the church. They did not need to be genocided. You know, and you just being a party to that feels gross. But I always do it because the rune is better. It's just such a good rune.
Yeah. What's funny about it too is like you've gone through this quest. Like this is the PvP quest. This is what gets you into a place where you can pick a team.
Yeah, other than Hunter of Hunters, which is probably the closest to good guys that you can be in this game, and that's also the hardest one to get, which we'll talk about, you know, soon, probably next episode. And that's you know that's what happens, but it's not the end. Weirdly enough, they very like kindly give you a way out. If you make that horrifying realization that, like, I don't want to be an executioner. The rune, which we should mention, makes blood vials heal for more, and is significantly more useful than the corrupt vile blood one. But if you take that queenly flesh, which you can just pick up when you pick that up as an item, and it just pops up as like queenly flesh, it's what am I doing?
Well, it even says like a pink bit is still writhing in the chair.
Oh man, gross. But weirdly enough, there's a place where you can resurrect her. And that's an area we're going to get to in a while. It's called the Altar of Despair, behind a very difficult alternate boss. And it's interestingly, you have to go to the very kind of upper echelon of the church to do so, and use kind of their rituals to do so.
And what's funny is when you do that, it says time has moved backwards for this piece of flesh. And when you go back to her, it's as though nothing happened at all.
Yep. And she forgives you right away as long as you kneel. Like as long as you show that, you know, that kowtowing to her.
Interesting.
It's perfect. Like it's a really perfect little story.
I've been so excited to talk about it, and I recognize all I've done is gush, but like it really is so wonderfully contained and so wonderfully, I don't know, just like emotional.
Yeah,
it has the bits of a Souls game that you love the most because it is, like you said, it's emotional. It has it not only deep lore, but its own set of lore. But then even just at like a very mechanical level, the design of the area is just so interesting. And I phrased this pretty poorly a little bit ago, but like the way the area loops in on itself and the path that it leads you through, it feels like a nice mix of like being led deeper and deeper into madness, but also kind of exploring it yourself. And it just has that vibe of a Dark Souls or a Demon Souls, which is such a welcome breath of fresh air in this kind of Gothic Victorian area that you've been playing around in, that is Yharnam.
Yeah,
it really is. It's just a friggin' masterwork.
Yeah, it recalls the best bits of Dark Souls 1, like the super sad stories of Dark Souls 1, like the Solaire and Sigmire and stuff, which were legitimately depressing character arcs. And this recalls that as kind of this grand opera. Like Sigmire didn't influence Solaire's sadness. Like those characters didn't really interact, with a couple of exceptions, like Big Hat Logan and his apprentice and the like, but the characters didn't really interact. This is multiple characters coming together to form a grander tragedy, and one we don't see even again in Bloodborne. Like it's not like Gurman's story isn't sad to a level, depending on how complicit you find him, but not like this. Like this is the to my mind the climax of the character work that's in the game, and it's in this optional side character level, and that's neat.
Yeah. I'm still mad about Gurman.
Yes. Super good. I love it. If you haven't some reason haven't gone to this area, like, boy howdy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's totally optional.
Yeah.
They have this amazing part of the game. What a lot of people say is like their favorite part of the game, and it's optional. You could totally skip this. You could have accidentally missed this.
Well, I love it when From does that. Like the Painted World is my favorite area in Dark Souls 1. And it's a similar thing where it's obscure to get to. Like I love their willingness to hide their light under a bushel. Like that's brave.
Yeah.
And I really love that.
And maybe that is how they motivate people to play through again.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like or at least look up a fact before you go into New Game Plus. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's about it for this area. What are we doing next time, Cole?
Well, Gary, next time we are going to kind of continue into the game by going to the lecture hall, first floor, and the Nightmare Frontier, kind of looking at some of these optional areas still.
Yeah, Nightmare Frontier, my least favorite area in the game. And we're going to be joined by Sean, the Lore Hunter, who you may have seen. You see on our Facebook page, he has his own blog called The Lore Hunter, which he started in the wake of Bloodborne, kind of compiling Dark Souls lore stuff and coming up with his own suppositions, and he's really great. So we're looking forward to having him on the show.
Cory, where can people find you?
You can find me at gamerswithjobs.com. We do the Gamers with Jobs conference call on every Wednesday. I probably find it on Tuesday nights, actually. We tend to upload it early. Go there, join the group, join the forums. Find people to play with. You find a lot of passionate Souls fans there as well. They also play a whole bunch of other games. And guys, I got to tell you, like, thank you so much for having me on the show. Not only has this been like educational for me, but it's also reawoken. Like, I want to go back through and play a whole way through Bloodborne again as well. And it's just been it's nice to. One of the things, if you go back and listen to Gamers with Jobs, is that there's only a few of us who play it, and we don't get super deep about it that often because we worry that we're going to bore people. But like, it's nice to talk to people and have this shared appreciation for these wonderful, awful, depressing games.
We never worry whether we're going to bore people, which isn't the same thing as saying we never bore people.
But it's really cool to see the community going in and putting this much effort and thought into these games. And I feel like that's kind of exactly what the developers want, right? It's why they are designed the way they are. And just talking through this is just such a blast. Yeah. I'm truly honored to be on the show. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Yeah. We're really happy to have you. Like it's been really fun. And I remember like when I first heard Gamers with Jobs, it was I followed Sean Elliott there.
Yeah.
For like a time that he was on the show. Yeah. And it was really cool. So I'm super happy to have you, and it's been really fun on our end as well.
Rad.
So Cory had to go, so we can do our admin stuff, but we're super appreciative of him kind of coming on here and lending us his time and his insight.
Yeah, that was great. Like it was super good. He's somebody who I've had on deck to be on the show the entire season, and just getting scheduled to work out and getting the correct, like the right place and getting everything to work out just took some time. Not on his end, on our end. As I mentioned, the show moves really slow, but I was really happy that we were finally able to hook up with them.
Yeah,
and everything, and we did it like right in time. Like dudes is getting married in a week, so he talks about that on Twitter. I'm not it's not telling tales out of school. But it was very kind of him to share his time with us.
Yeah.
Oh, what a fun time. And just like, boy, it doesn't help that, or it doesn't hurt that it was like the area of the game I'm most enthusiastic about.
Me too.
I'm not saying it to like fuck over Sean when we talk to him next time. I just had to grouse about how terrible Nightmare Frontier 1 is.
Yeah, no, I've been just kind of like, I started assembling the notes for this earlier than I usually do because I've been so excited about it. Just like, oh my gosh, and here's this other angle, and I'm just at work doing Googles for like Cainhurst Thumerians.
Yeah, can you just not wait to just like be like, here's a place where Amygdala lives, and that's it. It's a big brown expanse.
Might have something to do with Loran. Who knows?
Yeah, like it is. Boy, I don't like that area. But anywho, I mean the boss fight's good.
Yeah,
but the we'll talk about it. Like the lecture hall is cool too. I like the lecture halls.
Yeah.
So just kind of doing some admin stuff. That's what we're doing next time. We still have a couple special episodes in the can, or not in the can, in the pike.
Yeah,
it goes from pike to can. It's dirty. So we have that's where the blood dregs go. The blood dregs go from pike to can.
Oh man, you made me sad with that, Gary.
It's the summer of blood dregs.
It's the year of the blood frog.
Blood frog. I like the blood frog. Yeah, so what can people do admin-wise to help us out and the like?
Well, if you dipped out for the Dark Souls 2 season, or our Dark Souls 2 reprise, I guess, let's say here, and are just hopping back on for the Bloodborne train, in the intervening time, we have actually revised our Patreon campaign with a bunch of cool stuff. So go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and see some of the new reward tiers. A couple of them have to do with our other show, Abject Suffering, which we really, really love, but some of them have to do with like becoming a part of the community. Like we have a Slack channel now.
Yeah, which is really fun. And there's if you want to talk to us about Dark Souls 3 spoilers, no. But if you want to talk to people about Dark Souls 3 spoilers, there's a whole channel set up for that. So you can talk about it. It's not like throwing stuff on our Facebook page and we're going to get cranky at you or not read it. Here's where you a dedicated place to talk to people about Dark Souls 3 stuff. And they're all, really emphatic fans. So I'm sure that they have amazing insight that I'll catch up on months and months of once I actually beat it.
Yep.
Which I probably won't do. But it is a really fun. One of the things that's kind of related to the show is that we have that Lovecraft episode coming up at some point. We're planning. And I'm going to do a Slack book club thing where we're going to read, probably in a week, I'm going to start read The Shadow over Innsmouth. And have a Slack channel to discuss, kind of an ongoing book club, and then we'll kind of rotate that out probably for some other Lovecraft stuff, some of it related to Bloodborne, and that way we can all talk as we go through, my favorite horror author.
Awesome.
So just stuff like that. It's a good fun time. There are other ways that that's changed too. I advise you guys to check it out. And if you're not able to help us out financially, I understand that. If you buy things on Amazon, if you go to Duckfeed.tv/tipjar, we get a cut of that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and it makes a big difference. It pays for a lot of our expenses. And then the other thing you can do if you don't shop on Amazon and don't have money for our Patreon or choose not to donate to it, you can also just kind of rate and review us on iTunes or blog about it or Twitter about it. Or do anything like that, because that helps us out a lot.
Yeah, share us on forums and things like that. Like word of mouth is really all that we have. We've dipped into some advertising in the past, and it has not been nearly as effective as just kind of the natural growth that you guys provide by being so kind as to spread the word. Yeah,
so start those Reddits and the like about it. That's really appreciated. Dig it, stumble upon. Do all those things. Put us on your tribe.
Friendster.
Yeah, Friendster us.
Zanga.
Yeah. do all those things for us. But above all, what is the one thing that they should do, Cole?
Oh man, I didn't look at the dialogue, Gary. They should you just cut Annalise a break.
That's probably it.
Yeah.
You should kneel.
Neil.
Hello.
Who is Zudok?
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
Yeah. I'm Neil. What can I do for you?
Just Neil.
Yeah.